let everybody in.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, folks. Come on in. We'll give everybody a second or two to get connected to audio, and we will begin.
How's everybody doing today?
Doing good, Steve. How about you?
I'm good, Beth. Good to see you.
Beth, is that an easel with some artwork behind you there? Are you mid-project?
It is. No, it's all completed. You just can't see it. I'm starting my new one.
You gonna do another calendar?
No, not this year. No, I've kind of stepped away from the horses for a little bit.
Oh, well, how will I know what day it is? Not my Beth calendar.
You can still buy calendars. You just won't see one of my pictures on it.
I guess. Well, we are all connected here. Let me officially welcome everyone to the next in the Pragmatic Institute Ask Me Anything series with a Pragmatic instructor. So good to have you back again. It looks like so far, I think everybody's got their cameras on. Pretty good, pretty good. We love seeing faces out there. It makes it so much easier to talk to real people instead of just squares. So welcome, glad you did that. This is an Ask Me Anything session. So we have some questions that were submitted previously that we'll start going through. But if you are here live with us in Zoom, of course, feel free. You can either unmute yourself and ask with your mouth, or you can stick them in the chat. You can address those either to everyone in the Zoom session if you like, or you can address them just to myself, Eddie Gordon, and I will keep an eye on the chat and toss them over to our instructor as we have time. And let me also give a shout out to the Pragmatic Institute, Pragmatic alumni community. We're proud of it. We love it. It's already buzzing with activity. Here is a quote from somebody who's already in the online community. This is from the director of product and DevOps at Ultimate Software, who said, "It's a thriving community ready to help each other and offer perspectives and advice, as well as access to the many experts at Pragmatic Institute. It provides you with an alternate sounding board and a place to gain ideas from many product people across the industries. If you haven't looked into the Pragmatic Institute alumni community yet, do so at pragmaticinstitute.com/community. You will be glad that you did." And with the intro stuff out of the way, it is time to say hello to today's Pragmatic Institute instructor extraordinaire, Mr. Steve Gaylor. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, Eddie. You know, I always love the way you set, you set the bar really low, right? Not much expectation when you introduce us. So thanks for
Extraordinaire.
welcome.
I could have gone with something bigger. Godlike instructor, Steve Gaylor.
Yeah, whatever. All right.
So we got a bunch of questions already submitted. As I said, as we were talking beforehand, Steve, there's a bit of a theme in some of these. We got lots of pricing questions in today. So folks are going to learn some things about pricing. Maybe we'll start here with this one here's one from Heath. Not a pricing one yet, but this was a good one. This is about kind of the relationships between departments in your company. Heath asks, how can you be the expert for the customer in a structure where the salesperson is the gatekeeper and much closer to each of our customers' businesses than we are? How does that relationship work?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, Heath. I think you have to think about it from the salesperson's perspective. The salesperson's number one objective is to make quota, right? That's what they're all about. That's what they're held accountable for. And they hold that relationship and hold it tight because they're afraid that we in the product side may do something that upsets that opportunity for them to make quota, or makes it more difficult for them to sell, whatever that might be. I also think there's also a natural kind of, hey, don't tell me how to sell and don't judge my selling abilities, and you're not my boss, you're not here to evaluate me kind of thing that goes on as well. So I think the best thing we need to do is sit down, and for me, it's usually worked best when I sat down with sales managers or somebody of that nature and say, look, I'm a product person. I want access so I can find new opportunities for us as an organization. I can find new opportunities for you to go sell stuff. I'm not there to participate in the sales process. I'm not there to evaluate your selling skills or anything like that. I'm there to try to find new opportunities for the company and therefore new opportunities for you. And that kind of takes it into a paradigm that they're familiar with, right? I'm trying to make it, find out what I can to help you sell and some things like that. So I think if we sit down and have those conversations and say, you know, the reason I want access is so I can help you achieve quota, then that puts a very different slant on it. I'm happy to, as soon as I have that conversation, I'm happy to share with you anything I found out. You know, anything you'll have the information as soon as I can get it typed up or whatever, right? So I think we've got to look at it from the salesperson's eyes and why are they the gatekeeper? Why do they want to hold that? And then let's explain to them how we're actually there to help them and support them, and not to try to judge them or anything like that.
Are they worried we're going to mess up the relationship with their customer?
Yeah, excuse me. I think that is part of it. Absolutely. That to me falls under the category of you're going to make it difficult for me to sell more stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's spending time with the salespeople and you know, getting them comfortable with us as a participant in those kinds of discussions.
Well, let's enter our pricing run here. We've got a few along the same theme. This one, I don't have a name for the submitter, but the question is a good one. They ask, my willingness to pay for a product or service might be higher than the price I end up paying. From experience, it often happens when customer segmentation is not done right, or there is no fencing between segments or sale remuneration is on volume or sales targets are too high. What's your take on this one, Steve?
Yeah, so my take on that is you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, and we talk a lot about in the pricing class, we talk a lot about market segmentation and how to segment it, how to segment and how you can, for lack of a better term, take advantage of that higher level of willingness to pay in certain market segments versus other market segments. Sometimes that's having different versions of products, and you know, sometimes it's, you know, different tweaks and things like that we can make to capture that greater level of willingness to pay. But what you really, you know, kind of captured there, and unfortunately we don't have the name, but what you really captured there in that description is kind of all of the reasons, or a number of the reasons why we feel that we left money on the table, if you will, right? I know that person was willing to pay, but the salesperson was pushing volume, or they were, you know, whatever those attributes might be. I think especially with sales comp plans, you've got to step back and say, okay, why was the salesperson pushing volume? Why is their comp plan volume oriented, unit oriented instead of revenue oriented, for example? We may be trying to accomplish different things as an organization. If we're trying to grab market share as a part of a new product launch, something of that nature, then it could very well be that those references are more valuable to me than the actual revenue dollars are to me. So if those aren't aligned, if the you know, your goals and you feel that what you should be chasing with your product aren't aligned with sales, then take the time and the effort to understand why those sales comp plans were structured the way they were. Generally speaking, those sales comp plans are going to be organized in a way that aligns with the strategic objectives of the business. So that, you know, your personal, did we leave money on the table? Yeah, maybe we did, but maybe we wanted to because we were trying to gain something else of value instead of just that revenue. So also look at those kinds of things as well.
Thanks, Steve. And Manesh, everybody's pointing it out in chat. I'm going to say it out loud. Check out the background. PMC, let's see, is it a 4? I can't see behind you. It is PMC 4. Check him out. We love it.
So Eddie, this week, a student in my class, we popped up the rule, your opinion, although interesting, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes later, one of my students had that as their background.
That is a background.
Green
That's good.
capture and popped it in. And so it's pretty cool.
I also see in the chat, Alika, did you have a question or a comment about pricing? Feel free to unmute and you can just ask us out loud if you like, or stick it in the chat, whichever you're comfortable with. Give Alika a second to find all the buttons.
Yeah,
Maybe.
If you're speaking, Alika, Zoom has you muted.
Alika, I'm going to go on, but I've not.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, there we
All
go.
right, so-
We got you. We can hear you.
Okay. We've gotten some interest by kind of some senior directors and directors to move to value-based pricing. I took the pricing class. And, but now kind of the rubber's meeting the road where I have to create a template. There was only really one template in the pricing class workbook. So I'm kind of like taking that, but so I'm going to kind of put that in one Excel tab. But the first tab I was going to establish in this tool I'm trying to build is it a which one or will I, right? Because I think in the class learned that which one means that there's competitors in the space and you're looking for you have to know a little bit about the second best option.
Correct.
Okay, so kind of like, you know, that's the first tab. Answer, is it which one or will I? And we'll give some context. And then if it's a which one, then I was going to use the template in the pricing workbook, which was you have to look at your distinctive competencies or features, not all of them, but the ones that really stand out, right, against the second best option. Put a dollar value around them. Am I kind of on the right approach of how I'm designing this simple Excel tool?
You are, Alika, you very much are. Two comments for you. The first one is, it's interesting, Callie, this is the video that almost exactly the video in the conversation that I've just recorded a video for the alumni community. And that what you're describing, Alika, is pretty much that. There are really two things that we look at, right? You start out by saying, okay, is this a will I or a which one kind of product? So when someone makes a buying decision, are they only saying, will I buy this? Or are they also saying, once they've answered yes to will I, are they also saying, okay, now which alternative am I going to purchase? So that's the first tree, right? That sends us down two paths. Then the second question you want to think of is, okay, when this person makes that buying decision, is there an economic value calculation that they're making? Are they trying to calculate an ROI? Are they trying to calculate some productivity gain? Are they trying to do something like that? And that will also drive us down different paths. So if they're making an economic value calculation, then we use a couple of different methods to determine how much of that economic value that we can capture in the form of our price. Now, the path that you've gone down, Alika, you have said, okay, this is a which one decision. They're not making an economic value discussion. So now I need to compare myself versus that second best option versus the competition that they're considering me against. The only kind of subtle bit that I would add to what you described was maybe your distinctive competencies that you want to list, but not necessarily. Really what you want to look at are the buying criteria that buyers using to make a decision. And here are the things that are buying criteria that I address better than the competition. Here's criteria that they address better than I do, and then net those things out. Now, the good news is, I don't know if you've been out to the Alumni Resource Center recently, but we've got some new calculators that I believe are in the Alumni Center now around price that do exactly what you're trying to do.
Oh, wait, so then I look under, what would I look, what's the title of it?
Yeah, so what I would do, the easiest way for me has always been to use the Alumni Center, and I've been a member of the Alumni Center since 1999, maybe something like that.
It's changed a little since then, Steve.
Yeah, no, I know. I keep up to date, Eddie. I go back out, right? The easiest thing for me, and I think it's still structured this way, but somewhere in there, there'll be a framework. And the last time I looked, it was down kind of toward the bottom. You had to scroll down a little bit, and there's a framework in there. And if you click on one of the activities in the framework, it'll bring back all of the tools associated with that activity. So just scroll down, click on the pricing activity, and it'll bring those price tools back for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
this was super helpful. So it sounds like I've got some refinement, but I'm starting with the which one or will I is a good kind of
Yep.
approach. Okay.
The way I think of it is almost like a decision tree. Which
Yeah,
one?
exactly.
Right.
That's exactly what I was telling these people. I was telling them it was a decision tree. And that's
Yep.
why it's a very kind of simple process, because it's not, you're not going to get bogged down in a lot of stuff that, you know, people, when they think of a tool or something. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, I think that thinking of it as a decision tree also takes away some of the, I don't know, the feeling that it's black magic or it's opaque or something. There really is. You can go this, and this is what this is how I determine what people are willing to pay. So I think it's much more structured, much more straightforward, maybe than some people think, if you haven't had that kind of background.
You could even say it's pragmatic, right, Steve?
That is a very pragmatic way to
You
go.
could say that.
I think that's
Yeah.
well fit.
I like it. Thank you so much for the question. Good one. We're on a roll with the pricing questions. I got another one for you, Steve, if you're up to it.
All right, we'll give it a whirl.
Here is one from Robin, who asks, is product pricing really a good measure of value capture or creation? What about offering price reductions, but then winning an extremely satisfied and then hopefully loyal customer? Is it worth it in the long run?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I'll answer the first part of that first. I would say, yes, price is the only measure of capturing the value that you've created, right? I mean, that's what it does. That we like to talk about in the pricing class, that's the market putting a grade on all that work that we've done, right? What they're willing to pay is putting that grade on that effort that we have. Now, if you look at it from a vendor perspective and us setting price, we'd like you to understand the willingness to pay and start with that as your price point, your pricing theory, right? I want to start with that willingness to pay. But I may choose to charge something other than what they're willing to pay in order to capture something else of value to me. That example that we talked about a moment ago, when somebody said, you know, what if the comp plan is around units rather than revenue? Well, what that tells me is somebody who set that comp plan for the sales team is worried about getting more worried about getting customers in the door than they are about profitability. And that is a very common thing when we're approaching a new market. We're coming into a brand new market. I'm trying to grab market share, build that reference base kind of thing. So in those situations where we give a discount in order to get a satisfied customer in the long term, what we've done is said, okay, there is a portion of value in price, and there's a portion of value of having that person as a long-term customer, a happy, satisfied customer, and that price plus the value of the good reference customer, good long-term customer, is really the value that I'm capturing. So we got two different elements, two different parts of value, one related to the price paid, the other related to having that good long-term customer. And those two things together represent the value that we're capturing from the product that they've purchasing.
And then speaking of value, here's a related question from Dorcel along those same lines. If one of your product's benefits is efficiency, for example, time saving, guided workflows, et cetera, is there a better way to communicate that efficiency is such overdone benefit, and I'd like to find some more creative ways to make our efficiency stand out?
All right, buzzword bingo. Let's go talk about some efficiency. Right?
Efficiency.
Yeah, that's a good one. That one's worth double points.
Synergize.
And it also ties back actually to a discussion that we had a moment ago when I was speaking with Alika about the decision tree. And I said, will I, which one? And then I said, are they performing an economic value calculation or not? If you can express your efficiency in the form of some kind of economic value gain. And I think, could you read again the examples that they had of?
Yeah, they had an example of products that touts time-saving ability or guided workflows.
Yeah, so those kinds of things are all about reducing the cost associated with performing whatever that function is.
Mhm.
So if you can take it into that structure and either they may already be performing an economic value kind of calculation, what's the return that we're going to get from solving this problem or increasing this efficiency, then you can use that in your pricing. If they're not doing that already, then in your messaging and in the way you take your product to market, don't describe it by saying, hey, we're efficient. Say, hey, here are the savings that you can see. And ideally, we've got, case studies and things of that nature that show some of that ROI gain that people have looked at. Those buyers are not going, most likely they're not saying, the reason I'm buying this is so I can gain some efficiency. Most likely they're saying, I believe this is going to reduce my cost, or this is going to allow me to be more, here you want another buzzword, bingo, it's going to allow me to be more productive, right, kind of thing. So you got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes. And if we can, and if there is an economic value calculation, or if we can guide them to an economic value calculation, then we would price accordingly based on that economic value that they're calculating.
Yeah, and if Doorcell's customers then need to get approval for the purchase from their boss, it makes it much easier to go with hard numbers like that. Look at the examples. These people saved this much. We could expect something comparable. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you bring in sales tools like ROI calculators and things like that to give them even more tools to basically build that business case for them.
All right. Well, Steve, we talked a little bit about this next question beforehand, and I definitely want to ask it because I think it affects everybody. But this is one from James, who says, I have some concerns about hitting our upcoming revenue targets for the next few quarters. I know given the current state of things, we were expecting to brace for this, but I was wondering in what ways I can be forward thinking so we can bounce back as much as possible when the time is right. James is asking for all of us, Steve.
Yeah. All right. So I think, I've been through probably not, definitely not as dramatic a V as we've seen right now. It's gone down and now it's coming back up. But I've definitely been through some troughs. And one of the things that was, and it's in a way, it's kind of counterintuitive, but maybe not. We hit those troughs, and one of the things that always happens, it seems, is that marketing budgets get cut and things like that. That's one of the first ones that go, and so on. Also, at that same time, in industries I've been in before, in the past, the expense for advertising and promotional materials, content development, all that kind of stuff also drops because there's not nearly as much demand, right? So you could make the argument, and I have made the argument, that it's when we hit one of those troughs, right, we should actually be spending more because now we're getting more awareness, we're getting more bang, we're starting to position ourselves in the market so that when that upturn does happen, we're already right there. So that's just one example. I think what I would do, and this is logically how would I think about that, is say, okay, what is it that is a lot less expensive for me now that's going to give me a big payback once this thing turns around, and go invest in those things. And advertising or marketing programs, marketing is just one example of that. But even at Pragmatic, as you all know, right, here comes the downturn. Now, we were fortunate that we were positioned because we were already delivering classes online. So the transition to online classes was relatively straightforward for us. But that was something that we said, okay, how can we be well positioned on the other side of this, right? We're still developing new content and interacting and building the awareness and the customer base and the alumni and things of that nature, so that when we come out of this, we're going to be, well positioned. So see if you can find something that is an asset or something you would maybe not purchase right now, but when that trough happens and it's a lot less expensive, see if you can take advantage of that.
Very cool. It almost seems like if everyone else is taking the cautious approach and cutting back their marketing budgets, but you take the counterintuitive approach and you find yourself more exposed and better positioned than they are anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
Interesting.
it's almost like this analogy, if you listen to investment advisors, or the people who pontificate on the market on an hourly basis, they'll tell you the time to invest is when things are at its lowest point, right? That's when you should be buying. That's essentially what we're talking about here.
Buy low, sell high.
You got it.
Here's one from Rob Steve, who asks, what metrics do you think are most important to pay attention to during a new product launch? Thanks for your time. I find these AMAs extremely valuable. The rest is mostly praise of me, but we won't go on with that.
Yeah, the man behind the curtain, right? So, a very good question, I think, and that's it really goes to the heart of one of the very big principles that we teach in our launch class. And that is, you need to have a goal for that launch, right? What are you trying to accomplish? And we talk about goals in the context of a metric, an amount, and a time frame. Right. So if it's a new product launch, which I believe is what you described there, right? It's a new product that I'm taking to market. Yep. Perhaps my metric is awareness in the market. So all my launch activities are around generating 25% awareness of our product with CIOs within 6 months. Or maybe you're trying first early adopters, those reference customers you can build on. So your product launch is all about, I want to have 6 new reference customers in 3 months, right? So you build your launches around those kinds of goals. So metric, amount, time frame. What are the goals in a new product launch? I think you're looking at probably awareness. You're probably looking at those early adopters kind of thing. Maybe you're looking at market share, depending on how mature the market is. Am I capturing market share? Things like that are probably going to be the metrics that are relevant there. But just start with what am I trying to accomplish? What's my goal? And then beyond that, once you've established that goal, you can look at leading indicators to say, am I getting enough deals in the pipeline to be able to get those reference customers, right? Those are some leading indicators to tell me am I on the right track? Am I getting enough people to come to the website to download that white paper, right? As a measure of awareness, right? They're aware of us, they're coming to the website. So there's some metrics you can use that are kind of leading indicators to let you know if you're on the right track. But until you have a goal for the launch, you don't know what metrics you should be tracking to see if you're on track to achieve that goal.
Good. We've had a couple new people jump in. Welcome. Good to see you. And just a reminder, this isn't Ask Me Anything. So if you want to unmute, ask a question, go for it. Or if you just want to stick it in the chat, we'll toss those over to Steve as well. But good to have you. I've got one here from Robin, who asks, is product pricing really a good measure of value capture creation? What about offering price? Oh, wait, we did that one, didn't we? I had Robin on here twice.
Yeah,
there, Robin.
For a minute, Eddie,
Robin almost got twice the deal there, but the answer was the same. The answer was the same for Robin.
Just a minute, I thought you were asking me to see if I would say the same thing twice, right?
It was a test. It was a test. How about this one from Pilar? Pilar asks, we are considering running some B2B influencer campaigns, and I was curious for your thoughts on this. Have you found them successful? How many influencers have you tried to engage, and did it end up moving the needle in any significant way?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question that really, I mean, Callie, that would be a perfect question for the community, right? When you've got that broader set of folks that are experienced. With regards to the moving the needle bit, I think what you first have to understand or determine is how much that influencer actually influences your buyers. So as they're going through that buying process, do they reach out to those influencers? Who do they reach out to? So look at your buyer personas and say, where do they go for information, things like that. that will give you a gauge of whether or not that's even worth the effort. If those influencers are out there talking, but nobody's listening, that they're not really impacting deals, then, you know, why worry about influencing? Unless you're trying to build awareness. You know, we talked about awareness a moment ago. That could be a goal that you're trying to achieve, something like that. But I would start with saying, okay, how influential really are these influencers? And then I think it comes down to, you've got to look at it from the influencer's perspective and say, what's in it for the influencer? If I, you know, talk about this product or talk about this solution or whatever, what's in it for me? And from an influencer perspective, am I talking about things that are new that people are that haven't heard of before? This is great stuff, and you guys need to go check it out. So I'm building my reputation as an influencer. Are you giving me content that I can use in my blogs and things like that, that, you know, can further discussion and can, you know, our thought leadership pieces, things like that. So what's in it for the influencer? But before you even get to that step, you've got to say, does the influencer matter? Sometimes they do, some buying cycles they do, some buying personas they do, sometimes they don't. So you've got to kind of look at that and treat it on a personal level. But I think that would be a great question to ask in the alumni community, because you get the experience of all those people who are, you know, in the throes of that kind of thing now.
Awesome. Looks like Jason just posted a big one there. Sorry, I saw you go off mute a second. Do you want to just ask out loud? You're more than welcome to.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Jason Wirtz. I work at Salesforce and just finished my the Foundations course. So, of course, I am doing the positioning document, which is very helpful. So we have a new product launching in the fall, and we have two very different user personas who have very similar needs and will find value in this product. So I'm a little torn as to whether to create one positioning statement for both personas, two different positioning statements for each of the personas. And one of the reasons I asked that is because we go to market by industry, and these users are in different industries. And they use different language to describe their work. And so I just wanted some guidance on that, or your thoughts.
Yeah, great question. So the guidance that we give you, the way we talk about it in class, it's some in the foundations and also in the focus class in detail, but you need a separate positioning document anytime the persona's problems are different. So and you've got to consider it from the persona's perspective. I think you did a great job describing, Jason. You know, they really have the same problem, and we're going to use the same product to solve both of them, but they talk about it in different ways. They use different vernacular. They're in different industries. So to me, that's clear guidance that you would need two separate positioning documents because recall, positioning should use words that the persona uses. It should use terminology and phrasing and understanding that we have of those personas. So you're telling me they're using different terms, they're describing it in different ways, and they're in different industries. Then to me, that's two different positioning documents, even if you choose to solve all those problems with the same solution.
Awesome. Thank you. Very helpful.
Good. Thanks for the question. We got one from Steve, who asked, what are some best ways to write and develop positioning that clearly conveys my customers' problems and how products solve? It's almost as if Kay heard Jason's question.
Yeah, so same kind of thing there. I really think it's in the process, and I don't know what classes the questioner has been through, but we're pretty structured in the way we build positioning and the way we talk about positioning in the class. So it starts with pick a persona. So Jason, this kind of leads into your question as well, right? Pick a persona, write down all the problems you solve for that persona, group those problems, build bridges between those problems and your product features. So the short answer to the question is stop talking about your product in the context of the features in your product and start talking about your product in the concepts based on the problems that you're solving for that persona. The best way to talk to them about their problems is to start with their problems, right? In fact, I would say positioning documents should be 95 to 99% about what are the problems we're solving, and 5% to 1% about how we solve those problems. And so before you can talk about how, you have to first talk about what. And so the question, you know, again, we're very structured in the way we teach positioning in our classes, but it starts by picking a persona and listing all the problems. And Jason, just kind of piggybacking on the question you asked, it sounds to me like you're going to pick one persona, write down all those problems using the persona language, and then you pick your second persona and write down that persona's problems, and you're going to have two different problem sets that you're solving if you look at it from the persona's perspective. Also about why you should have two different positioning documents.
Okay, great.
Jason, did you have a follow-up question as well?
I do. Sorry, this is very not going to be, might not be helpful for the rest of the group, but so
That's why we're here. Ask questions.
I'm kind of in this position where my team and I, we're a new team, and we implemented a new innovation process, and it's separate from the product management and product marketing team. So it's our own, we're actually in the customer success world. So it's this new process. And so we're kind of tasked with owning product management to some degree and product marketing. And so none of us are product marketers. That's why I'm taking this class. And so we're about to launch the product probably at the end of October. And so I'm trying to figure out what's my next step in terms of the courses. I was planning to take launch because we're doing a product launch, and then I realized, I probably need to go deeper into persona building and positioning first and understand that. So then I switched to market. But is that the right class I should be taking next, or I'm not sure if.
Yeah, so all this stuff's kind of intertwined, right?
Yeah.
And you're mid-flight here, so how do we intersect the flight path to get you the most productivity?
Yeah.
Buyer persona development is taught in the market class. User persona development is taught in the build class. Positioning statements are detailed in the focus class. You obviously had some overview of them in the concepts anyway in the foundations class. Focus, actually, you have a case study where you go build a positioning document as a group exercise. So we get to that next level of detail. What order would I take them in if I were in your position? How many can you take?
I mean, I can take all of them. So yeah. I don't necessarily have the time to take them all in the last couple of weeks, but yeah.
So I was trying to think can I recommend 2 classes or can I recommend 3 classes? Manish, go ahead. I mean, you've got.
I got one thing. I took my classes with Steve, and I took them 2 classes together, and then I couldn't take them till like February or something like that, and took them separately again. If you can, try and do them all together, and then keep these books handy every time. You can't see it because of the blue background, but it's the foundation.
These invisible books.
That would be foundations.
If you can do them, in my opinion, if you can do them all at the same time,
okay.
Like he said, it's all intertwined and it all gets put together, and then you try and go and apply it. It's so much more helpful. When I was just doing the first 2 classes, and then I came back, and then I was like, very much like you're asking these questions that are intertwined to the other classes that you really need to do, which, if I were to do it over again, I'll take them all and get it over with, is the best way I would do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good input.
This is Alika. I'll share with you my perspective. I took 4 of the classes all in a month and a half's time frame. And I'm just building on what the previous gentleman said, that I was able, and Steve knows this too, I was able to take material that I was learning in the morning and put into PowerPoint decks in the afternoon and actually speak with a certain level of confidence. Now, we implemented Pragmatic a year ago as a framework. So I had some background already, but I really found it beneficial to take them in a closer span of time because they are so interrelated. And we have product lines that are all, got current product releases underway. And then we've got some innovation underway too. So it just was really helpful to have all that background kind of reinforced through the class.
This is great. Okay, I think you've convinced me to do it. I think I'm going to do at least 2 classes.
Yeah.
So what would the next 2 classes be, do you think?
So launch is going to be very important to you as you get close to that launch activity, right? That's where you've got going on, what you've got going on. How well do you understand buyer journey mapping and buyer persona development? I shouldn't say, I asked that in a bad way. How much experience do you have in those kinds of areas?
None. I'm a newbie.
All right. So I would say you have the foundation, just even based on the question you've asked, you have the foundations around positioning. So I think I would take market next because that's going to teach you buyer journeys and how to go do the mapping and map your sales assets into the buying process and all that kind of stuff. Also buyer personas. And then launch will prepare you to, you know, to launch that thing to market. So I think those would probably be the 2, given your situation and where you're, you know, where you are. Build, you're well beyond writing requirements and you have work underway and all that kind of stuff. So I would probably put build at the bottom of your stack, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And it sounds like you're already through the strategic planning process, for better or worse, which is what we cover in focus. So I think you're beyond focus and you're beyond build, but
Okay.
the market and launch would probably, from a timing perspective, be the right things for you to go take. Yeah.
Jason, I hope you saw Callie's comment in the chat over there. She posted a coupon code for $200 off your next courses. Look at that. This session has been fantastic.
Wow.
Value added. How about that?
Paid for that free session already.
Well, Steve, we've got time for one more. And I've got one here. It is a broad one, but it comes back to that most important box in the pragmatic framework. The question is, what is your process and best practice for gathering feedback from product users? It's a broad one, but do you have some methods for gathering feedback from users?
From users specifically, that's a great question. Oftentimes the buyers are sometimes a gatekeeper for the users, so it can be hard to get to them. I think one of the best things that have really come up in, you know, it's a kind of a recent tool that we have in our kit to use for that kind of analysis is some of the data instrumentation and data analytics and those kinds of things that are built into a lot of products now. So we can start to have visibility to how our users are using those products, where they're going, the paths that they're taking through, where they're spending their time. So I almost like to think about data analytics and that you know, usage capture kind of stuff, instrumentation, product instrumentation. Sometimes you hear it called. I almost like to think of that as the silent interview or the silent observation, the invisible observation. Right? We're kind of there, understanding what's going on by that. So I think that's a great tool that more and more and more products have. Now we've got to understand how to use all that data. We have to ask the questions and what the answers that the data scientists are giving us are really telling us and so on. But I think that's probably one of the best kinds of things that we've done in recent history that will help with that. Aside from that, hang out with a user, make friends with a user and say, hey, do you mind just, sharing your screen with me for 2-3 hours? I'm just let me observe. What are you doing? Where are you going? How are you spending time? If you want to open up a Zoom session, let me look over your shoulder. I think 6 months ago, there's no way anybody would have said, yeah, I want to go spend 2 or 3 hours on a Zoom session. But I think now in this world that we're in today, it's a very different kind of dynamic. So I think people are more open to that kind of thing. Now, there always is, of course, privacy concerns, and depending on your industry and those kinds of things, those concerns may be even heightened. But maybe we do, some kind of a non-disclosure or something like that just to make sure that we're covered. We like to talk about friend-DAs, right? Not a formal NDA, but let's friendly say, look, this is for me to gain knowledge. I'm not, it's nothing I'm malicious, but if we need an NDA, we can do that. But I love the instrumentation. I love the data analytics and things like that have become available recently. And beyond that, sitting, watching, observing, talking to a user, that there's nothing that's going to give you more insight than that.
My favorite metaphor that they use in class along that lines is to watch for where they pick up a pencil, right?
Yeah.
That's the moment where, for whatever reason, they've stopped using the product and they had to go do something else. Not even see it as a problem themselves, but if you are watching,
Yep,
you can say, well, they had to stop. There's a disconnect there of some kind. But
yeah, when are they picking up a pencil? When are they opening a spreadsheet? Right, something
Yeah.
like that. So an indication for us that there may be a problem there, an opportunity for us.
Steve, this has been awesome and good participation from our crowd today. It feels like it was of value to you. It's definitely value to me to see the input coming in. Heck, this is some of the best marketing that we get, is when we have attendees come in and talk about how the course was beneficial to them and which ones they're going to do next. So fun. Well, let me wrap up then by pointing out the next chance we could have to all get together. That will be Tuesday, August 25th. That's next Tuesday. This is the next in our product chat series. We will be joined at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time by Mark Allen Roberts. He's the CEO and founder of TB Sales Solutions, and we'll be discussing areas of your market you should be tuned into in order to stay on top of your game. Find more information about our product chat series on any of our social media sites. And then, of course, if you got more questions, join us again next Friday and every Friday for our Ask Me Anything series, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on Fridays. We'd love to see you here. And this has been so much fun. Thanks all. Be
All right,
safe,
guys.
be healthy.
Great
Have
weekend.
a great weekend.
Thanks.
See you.